Hey, what's up, Logic fans? Welcome to our fifth video on quantificational symbolization. We're going to be hitting section 4.5 of the text today. We introduce for the first time the existential quantifier, and in much the same way that we introduced the universal quantifier, we're going to do this over two sections. So in this section, we're going to go over the mechanics of the existential quantifier, what it is, how to combine it with the other symbols that we have in our symbolization apparatus and all of our devices. And then in the next section, 4.6, we will cover the meaning of the existential quantifier. I think you're going to find that the way we've laid this out is for it to mirror the universal quantifier and its mechanics. So hopefully you'll be able to pick up on all of the rules very, very quickly. All right, let's rock. Okay, so what is the existential quantifier and what does it stand for? All right, so let's just go over the basics here. So given an individual variable, lowercase x, lowercase y, or z, with or without subscripts, okay, the existential quantifier is the result of prefixing an individual variable with this funky backwards E-looking symbol, looks just like this, okay, and surrounding the whole thing in parentheses. So this right here is an existential quantifier, and we could have had the y in there, we could have had the z in there, we might have a little subscript here, maybe not, okay, but this is an existential quantifier. It is to be read, there exists at least one thing, z, such that, okay, so it's to be read, there exists at least one thing. So whereas the universal quantifier worked like this, says everything in the domain is a certain way, the existential quantifier says there exists at least one thing in the domain such that, okay? So we're going to talk more about the meaning of this in section 4.6, but that's the basic idea, and this is what the symbol itself looks like. Let's take a look at how to use this in conjunction with the rest of our symbolic devices, the universal quantifier, the arrow, the tribar, the negation, the property constants, all of these things. And your basic rule is that it works the exact same way that the universal quantifier does. So if you need to review in depth how that works, make sure you take a look back at section 4.3 for that, okay? Because that will help you understand this, and I've developed this to work in a parallel way so that you can pick it up very quickly. So to illustrate the parallelism, officially what we're doing is we're adding to our quantificational sentence rules. All right, so we've got QS1 through QS7, and then we had QS8 was the closure law that said anything that cannot be built up following QS1 through QS7 is not a sentence. Only the things that can be built up from QS1 through QS7 are sentences. We're going to move that closure law from QS8 to QS9, and we're going to slip in a new rule for forming quantificational sentences that allows us to bring on the existential quantifier. So it's going to come right after QS7 onto QS8. So QS1 is the property constants, are quantificational sentences, and then QS2 is the negation, QS3 conjunction, then disjunction, QS5 is arrow, QS6 is biconditional, and then you've got the universal quantifier rule, and now we've got the QS8. So everything's staying the same except for this, and this one is done in very parallel fashion to this one, right? So just picture it as the universal quantifier instead, and that's the mechanics of how you attach the existential quantifier, okay? So let's go through this. Given a quantificational sentence, call it alpha. If that quantificational sentence has an individual constant type mu and no individual variable, suppose it's x, occurs in alpha, then you can get a quantificational sentence by surrounding the whole unit alpha with parentheses, prefixing that with this, the existential quantifier, and replacing at least one token of the individual constant mu with your new individual variable, and you don't make any other changes. So exact same process as the universal quantifier. Let's look at a couple of examples to make sure we're on the same page. So permissible or impermissible? Here we have line 1, QS1, and that's a quantificational sentence. And then we're saying this is a quantificational sentence by applying QS8, our new existential quantifier rule, on line 1. All right, hopefully you've had a chance to pause and think on this, but this is absolutely permissible. Go ahead and do it. This is no problem, right? We took this entire sentence, right, prefixed it, or put it in parentheses, right, which is what we have here. We surrounded the whole thing with parentheses. We prefixed the entire unit with this guy, and then we replaced one token of the individual constant a with x, and x did not occur in the previous line, and so this is absolutely okay. We didn't make any other changes. So this is in fact a sentence by this demonstration here. So permissible. What if I went like this? Would this be permissible or impermissible? This also would be permissible. This should all feel very familiar from 4.3. Okay, this is permissible. And finally, this one, permissible or impermissible? That's permissible. Now, what if it was like this? Would this be permissible or impermissible? That is impermissible. Do not do it. Forbidden, okay? And in fact, this would be quantificational form, right? You cannot form quantificational sentences by playing with forms, all right? Alpha has to be a quantificational sentence. This is not a quantificational sentence, right? Quantificational sentences require you to use things like this, right? Individual constants, okay? So, let's keep looking at some more. Okay, so from the ground up, show that this expression is in fact a quantificational sentence. Build it from the ground up using QS1 through QS8. Pause now. Okay, and so hopefully you've had a chance to think on that. You should require a little less effort with this because it's following the exact same thing we did with the universal quantifier. And so this here is a demonstration that this sentence is a quantificational sentence. This expression is a quantificational sentence. This string of symbols qualifies as a sentence for us, right? So we got FA, GA, we combine them, and it's the exact same rules here. You could have replaced X with both of them, but if you had had a B here and this was GB, you could only replace one of them, either the A or the B. But if you have the same individual constant, you can replace all of them or just one of them. So we chose one here to get this expression, okay? So all of that is the same. Let's take a look at one more to drive that point home. Show that this expression is in fact a sentence. Pause now. So hopefully you've had a chance to do this, but yeah, in this case, right, it's just like this. And notice we used A in both cases so we could replace it in one go, all right, just like this, and that does yield this expression. Now, if we had had the B here, for example, you would not have been able to replace both of them, all right? Only multiple instant, tokens of the same individual constant type, all right? So you did need to go to the A here to get this expression. All right, let's keep looking at some of these more sophisticated examples, but again, it does follow the exact same pattern as the universal quantifier, although as we'll see, they mean different things. Let's try one where there's some nesting involved, where we've got multiple existential quantifiers. Show that this is in fact a sentence. You might not really understand what it means just yet, but that's okay. Let's just get the mechanics of the existential quantifier down first. What can be built and what cannot be built. So, show that this is a sentence. Okay, so in this particular case, we're going to have to use QS8 twice, right? But what's important to remember is the order in which you put them on. You want to do this one first, then this one. All right, so let's go through this together. First, I get FA and GB. You could use A in both cases in this situation, but whenever I have two different ones, I adopt the sort of heuristic of letting my X's be A's and my Y's be B's and my Z's be C's. It's just sort of helpful conceptually, keeps me clear. But so I've got FA, GB, I build this construction right here, and now I'm ready to start, existentially generalizing there a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach this quantifier to this whole unit, replacing the x with the a, and then I'm going to go ahead and replace, or rather I'm going to take this whole unit and I'm going to prefix this entire unit with a new existential quantifier that does not occur, the variable y does not occur here, and it replaces at least one of the individual constants there. So it goes like this. Do not try to take this y and slip it in here in between, right? This has to be applied to, the whole unit, right? We have to surround the whole unit, in this case, this whole thing, with parentheses, and then put the existential quantifier in front of that, prefix it with it, just like this here. All right, so no sneaking it inside, all right? Okay, so that's how you build an expression like this. And again, this parallels exactly what we did with the universal quantifier in 4.3. Let's try a more complex one. So try this sentence here, which is pretty sophisticated. We did an example like it in 4.3 with the universal quantifier. But go ahead and see if you can demonstrate that this expression is in fact a sentence following our rules. Pause now. Okay, I'm going to walk us through this one because it's a harder case. But basically, I want to start off trying to build, this inner unit here. And this inner unit is fairly complex, but I notice right away I've got my f and my g. This has the x, this is the y. So I'm going to do fa, and that's going to be qs1, and then I'm going to do gb, and that's going to be qs1 as well. And then, of course, it might be tempting to go ahead and build the conditional if fa then gb, right? So some of you might be tempted to proceed this way. And there's a sense in which there's nothing wrong with this, and that's the sense in which, you can absolutely build this construction by, what is that? Is that QS 5? QS 5 on lines 1 and 2. There's no violation of the rules here that's occurred. This is perfectly acceptable to do. The problem is that, you can't sneak this existential quantifier inside here. You have to prefix an entire unit. You have to put the parentheses like this and then attach the existential quantifier out here. So what we want to do instead is attach the existential quantifier here so that we get this nice expression here. So let's go ahead and do that now. What we're going to do instead is we're basically going to get this expression, right? And we're going to prefix this entire unit with parentheses, and then put, we're going to surround this unit with parentheses. We're going to prefix it with the existential quantifier in terms of y, which does not occur in there. So this is perfectly fine use of QS8. So that's QS8 on line 2. And now what we're going to do is we're going to build the conditional. And the conditional that we're going to build is going to look just like this with one slight alteration, right? This is going to be an A. So we've got QS5 on lines, what is that, 1 and 3, okay? And now, see if you can finish it from here. So take a second to pause, but we're pretty much there. So what we can do now is we can surround this entire unit with parentheses, right? Just like this, okay, and I'm using the brackets just as a sort of device, and then we can prefix that entire unit with the existential quantifier, provided that the variable we use does not already occur in the sentence, and it does not, there's no x in there, and we have to replace at least one individual constant, in this case this one, and that's going to give us QS8 on line 4, and that is a demonstration that this expression is in fact a quantificational sentence. It can be built using our rules and nothing else. Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to spill us into another video so as not to rush the treatment, and so check out 4.5b. See you there.